Good morning, Harley.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm actually excited because there's something I've been wanting to talk to you about.
Oh, okay.
Have you been listening to any of the new pop releases lately? Pop music releases?
Yes.
Like Lady Gaga, Tate McRae,
Yes.
Chappell Roan.
Yes.
They are so good.
Yeah.
I'm not vibing with the whole Lady Gaga album release, but the How Bad Do You Want Me song has me in a chokehold right now.
It's a good I feel like all of it together is a good going into spring, going into summer soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as good as Brat Summer was.
No.
But
There's still time though.
It's still scratching an itch. I've been getting into Tate McRae as well.
Mm-hmm.
I like Dear God.
Yes.
That's a good one. That one scratches an itch.
Mm-hmm.
But I really, really love The Giver.
So good.
As a country girl myself.
So good. I was actually at work and my AirPods decided to disconnect while I was blasting The Giver. And so it interrupted meetings. But it was kind of funny.
You're like, sorry, this is how I get work done.
It was playing at volume, 100% volume and just blasted. I feel like Apple owes me some compensation for that humiliation.
Yeah.
But it's a good song, so I guess I shouldn't have any shame about it. But yeah, I always keep a playlist of just the songs I'm listening to on repeat.
Okay.
And it switches out with whatever's I'm listening to on repeat. And right now there are 3 songs in there, and it's Sports Car.
Okay.
How Bad Do You Want Me?
Mm-hmm.
And The Giver.
Mm.
And I'm just cycling through those 3. And it's all I need.
On repeat.
On repeat. I love the Taylor Swiftness of that Lady Gaga song.
Yeah.
It sounds like a 1989 vault track.
It totally does.
And The Giver is just perfect.
Yeah, I have been listening to more pop. I've been trying to listen to more pop in general because there's only so much Phoebe Bridgers that I think mentally and emotionally I should be listening to at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And with the sun coming out again, I think it's important to diversify there and let the sun in a little bit,
I would agree with that. I think that's a good idea. I found a new artist recently, new to me artist, obviously. Okay. She's been making music for a while. But she opened for Molly Grace at a show I went to at the Atlanta. Her name's Claire Ernst. And I think you like her a lot. She's pop adjacent. I would say she has poppy lyrics with more of a Phoebe Bridgers delivery.
Okay.
And she's really good. So you should give her a listen.
Okay, fine. I will. Don't twist my arm. All right. Now for what you've all come here today for.
Wait, they didn't come to hear us talk about pop music?
I don't think they did.
Oh, shocking. Okay. So what are we here to talk about then?
So today you're going to hear part 1 of my series on Abscam.
Ooh.
You may have heard of this before, but essentially it's an FBI sting operation in the late 1970s and 1980s that led to the conviction of 1 U.S. Senator, 6 U.S. representatives, the mayor of Camden, New Jersey, 3 members of the Philadelphia City Council, and an inspector for the Immigration and Naturalization Service.
I'm surprised we haven't gotten to this one yet.
I know. It's a big one. And that's why I think they're going to be 2 parts. I think I can finish it in 2 parts. We'll see. There might be a third, smaller one, if anything. I just want to make sure that we're getting all the juicy details.
It's exciting. It's been a minute since we've had a good series.
Yeah, exactly. And this one is great because it is in the 1970s and early 1980s, one of my favorite times in American history. My mom would be like,
I was thinking the same thing. I was so when my mom was growing up.
Yeah. Sorry, Mom.
Sorry, Dad, too. You were growing up then, too.
Yeah. He's less sensitive about it. I think he would probably agree.
Yeah.
That it might be historic at this time. My mom, no. Young forever. All right. Well, we're going to begin our story in Pittsburgh in 1977 when a man named Melvin Weinberg pleaded guilty in front of a federal judge to fraud.
She's Sarah.
She's Harley. And we're gaveling in another session of Crime in Congress. Originally from the Bronx, Melvin, usually called Mel, and I'm going to continue to call him Mel, had become a notorious con man running schemes across the country. And this guy is a total character, by the way. Quoting from Robert W. Greene's book, The Sting Man, Mel Weinberg does not look like the smooth, prototypical con man. He is squat, resembling a gray-bearded fireplug. A few strands of carefully arranged brown hair tenuously bridge his bald pate. He speaks with a gravelly voice and rich accents of his native Bronx, and he talks in the slang of the underworld. He wears $200 designer sweaters and Christian Dior socks, but they don't affect him. He admires luxury, but its nuances escape him. There's also a great story when Mel is with this potential client at dinner, and he orders a bottle of wine. And when the server comes and corks the bottle and pours Mel a taste, he goes, and this is a real quote, "Fill it up, you fuck. What do you think I'm paying for?"
Okay.
So again, he doesn't understand that, right, he's supposed to, like, just taste it before, like, you know, the big thing. So again, and he's, like, trying to impress this high-dollar client, and I'm sure they were like...
It kind of... just there chugging wine.
It kind of I don't know if anyone has been watching White Lotus, but there is a point when one of the characters they give her, like, the little taste of wine, and she goes, "Oh, I don't mean to be rude, but... this is a very small amount of wine. Do you think I have a little bit more?" And the guy who she's with is like, he wants you to try it.
One of my biggest fears is being the trier of the wine, because I don't know what I'm trying for. So I'm always like, oh, good.
It's just like if it's sour, like vinegary, like if it's been, if it's like gone bad, essentially.
Okay, so it's not like to test if you like it.
No.
Okay.
No. It's mostly just a test to make sure that it's not gone like sour.
Well, I think it's mostly performative.
He pours the entire like bottle, and like everyone else is like, "This is terrible."
Yeah.
You're like, "No, it's so good. It's so good."
I feel like you have to become the ambassador for this bottle of wine after you're the taster.
"No, guys, I really like it." They're like, "No, this is bad wine."
What are you talking about? It's Sutter House.
Yeah. It's Yellowtail. Anyways, so as you can imagine, Mel's life of crime is deep and colorful, but I've skipped a lot of it so we can focus on the nexus of his scams with elected officials. But if you want to learn more, I'd recommend the book I just quoted, The Sting Man, and not for nothing, but the movie American Hustle is also based on this book.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Featuring, importantly, Christian Bale and Bradley Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, by 1977, Mel had finally been caught for his latest scheme, a phony firm called London Investors, where for a large, non-refundable upfront fee, Mel promised to secure huge loans for clients that, surprise, surprise, never came. Mm. Now, Mel ended up pleading guilty to ensure that his mistress, who he had used for his schemes, would not face criminal charges. And as part of that deal, Mel would help the FBI go after white-collar crime through some low-priority sting operations. Enter in FBI supervising agent John Good. John is actually the guy who requested that Mel be interviewed for this potential collaboration. It was clear to Good that Mel knew a large network of crooks, but he had also served as an FBI informant in the past and had always delivered. For historical context, the FBI at this time was trying to rebuild its brand after the embarrassment and absolute mess of the Watergate scandal. And if you want to learn more about that, we have a 4-part series on Watergate, so go listen.
Go listen. She did a great job.
So if you did listen to that series, but you would also like a little bit of refresher, let me remind you that the acting director of the FBI during the Watergate scandal, Patrick Gray, actually destroyed sensitive files given to him by Nixon's advisor and really the leader of the wider cover-up, John Dean. This episode and more had destroyed the FBI's credibility and authority, not only with the public, but with the rest of the government. In short, the FBI needed a rebrand. And part of this rebrand was busting up white-collar crime through undercover operations. We're talking things like stolen art, forged or stolen securities, advanced fee scams, counterfeit money, bankruptcy burst out, things like that. You see, Over the reign of J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI rarely had done undercover operations and had also been called out for not doing enough to go after white-collar crime. Sorry, I'm stumbling a little bit on my words there, you guys. Forgive me. So the timing of this could not be better for our friend Mel Weinberg. From the beginning, Mel proved his value through his contacts with the underbelly of society and his elaborate but often expensive ideas. There's one story where he essentially forced the FBI to rent a plane so he could do a deal in the air, but the plan worked, resulting in the arrest of thieves who had stolen high-priced art.
Why did they need to make this deal in the air? I'm so curious.
So part of the idea was that it would give not only him more credibility, Mel and like his network of agents that was around him that he had they were like all acting as like staff essentially, or like art connoisseurs. But the idea was that he could garner enough trust from the guy and they would get on the plane, and then the thief would then tell the pilot where he wanted the plane to land, and that is where all the stolen art was.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
So the pilot of the plane was in fact in the FBI, and so they were able to kind of circle around and arrest everyone once they got on the ground. But again, it's very elaborate, but it's all to like seed this level of like credibility and trust so that they could arrest the guy who stole the art. But in this bust, Mel also received $10,000 from the insurers of the art as a thank you. And from there, Mel kind of realized that he might be able to make a living from being a quote-unquote government crook.
I can't believe this is a real story. Like, already this sounds like you're reading a movie script.
Oh, yeah. No, just wait. This is also about the time when Mel and the FBI decided to really double down on their sting operations and create a bulletproof narrative that would allow them to repeatedly go after criminals. Right before he got caught, and during some of his early sting operations that Mel had conducted for the FBI, he started using this loose idea that he was a representative of a wealthy Arab businessman who wanted to invest his mountains of oil money into the U.S. or buy art. It was a tactic that had hustlers from all around tripping over themselves to get a piece of. And this was an especially believable idea since OPEC oil production was a hot topic in the late 1970s.
And why exactly did this made-up business person want to invest in the U.S.?
Basically, the idea was that this businessman would need to flee his country in about 10 years and wanted his money out of the banks in the Middle East.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, the story kind of changes a little bit, you know, from sting to sting and from client to client, right? But the FBI fell in love with this idea, and soon they established their own phony firm, Abdul Enterprises Limited. Mel got the name from a millionaire businessman or an Arab sheik that Mel may or may not have met on a flight from Paris in his earlier conman days. Besides Mel, the staff list at Abdul Enterprises Limited included several other FBI agents who were given aliases and fake positions at the company. The most important quote-unquote staff member for our purposes is FBI agent Jack McCarthy, who was the chairman of the non-existent board. Now, to further legitimize Abdul Enterprises, the FBI agents did two important things. From the book The Sting Man, the agents created a fake letter from official State Department letterhead, purportedly from a U.S. ambassador, providing background information on the millionaire Abdul and listing his staff, who of course were actually FBI agents using their undercover aliases. The second thing they did was really genius. They called up a high-ranking official at Chase Manhattan's International Department in New York, this guy named Michael Elzay, and got him to agree to tell anyone who called inquiring about Abdul that, yes, this guy Abdul was legit, and he had millions on deposit with the bank. Now, any doubting parties would have proof that Abdul existed and proof that his wealth was, in fact, real.
That is really smart.
Yeah, right? And this pays off in dividends as this sting goes on.
When in doubt, get Chase Bank involved.
Yeah. Abdul Enterprises also got access to a plane, an outfitted van that could be used to pick up potential clients, and a bona fide office. Granted, the office was on Long Island and not in this like swanky suit in the city, but still, they did have their own office.
They had to have some sort of like limits on these expenditures.
No, they did. And like Mel, you'll see time and time again, is always very frustrated by this. Like the furniture in the office is not up to his par. And he's like, this makes us look foolish and not legitimate by the FBI is like, okay, there's only so much taxpayer money we can use for this thing.
Yeah.
And again, you have to think about the fact that at this point, these are still pretty low priority sting operations as far as the FBI. Like, we haven't even, like, reached the level of, like, elected officials.
Yeah, so they're spending a lot of money for not, at this point, not a lot of bang for the buck, I guess.
Yeah, they are getting people for sure. But again, it's lower priority at this point. So this is really the official start of the Abscam investigation, which is probably short for Arabscan, although some of the FBI agents tried to backpedal later and say it was actually short for Abdul Scam. Just wanted to throw it out there. So with things official, Mel and the FBI decided to do a trial run to see if their story could really stand the test. It was almost a disaster. To kick things off, Mel called up a New York businessman, Ron Sablonsky, that he had worked with in the past, and enticed him with the story about this Abdul character who had millions to spend in the U.S. And, oh, would you like to personally meet him at the Plaza Hotel? Ron immediately agreed, but there were a few internal problems that the Abscam team had to deal with. First, the FBI would only allow a $250 budget for the entire sting, a budget that certainly would not cover a high-dollar suite, a stocked bar, and hors d'oeuvres that the Mel had imagined and had used in his previous schemes. Mel had always spared no expense in trying to impress his targets and get them hooked on whatever deal he was peddling. This strategy had always worked, and the FBI was really cramping his style. Day of the meeting, Mel was so upset by the lack of spread in the small suite of the plaza that they had managed to book that he walked to the deli next door. Mel came back and piled paper plates high with kosher corned beef, pastrami, tongue, potato salad, and coleslaw. So, not the high-scale spread that's served by the plaza, and perhaps a little odd for an Arab man to be serving kosher cuisine at a meeting?
Yeah, I don't know that this is having the intended effect.
Yeah. Mel did consider this, but he thought it was just better to have food at the meeting than no food at all.
That's honestly true.
Yeah. The other problem was that the FBI agent that they did get to play Abdul did not speak Arabic and had no idea of the cultural norms of the region, like, at all.
Why would they pick this man?
Right? So with the panic of being busted on their trial run, the FBI agents frantically called around to the bureau until they found someone who told the agent how to say a kind of traditional greeting in Arabic. And although they had procured a headdress and robes for the agent to wear, the robes did not fit and the headdress was really wrinkled.
This is sounding like a mess already.
Yes. And to make things a little bit more complicated, there were like half a dozen FBI agents shoved in this small plaza suite. They had way too many people in the room for this like first sting.
So just to like really set the scene here, there's 6 FBI agents, an FBI agent in a wrinkled headdress pretending to be Arab when he doesn't even speak Arabic.
Yeah.
And there's kosher food being served at the plaza.
On paper plates, yes.
What a mess.
Yes, what a mess. So when the New York businessman Ron finally entered the suite with Mel, he was met with this overcrowded scene smelling of pastrami, and the only open chair was smack in the middle of the room. Not sus at all.
Yeah, I would immediately leave.
Yeah. And so then when it was time for the agent playing Abdul to enter the room, Ron immediately rose to his feet and said the exact traditional greeting that the bureau had told the agent to say. So surprised to have his greeting stolen, the agent kind of garbled this in response. Like he didn't know what to do at all. Ron then went on to reveal that he had actually done business in the Middle East before, and that he had risen to greet Abdul because the marking on his burnous or headdress indicated that the Abdul was actually an emir. Everyone in the room was shocked.
Yeah, they did not do enough research on this one.
I know, and like there was a quote from Mel being like, out of all the people, all the targets or marks that I could have picked, and I picked this schmuck, like.
And it's not like they were able to just like Google facts about the Middle East.
Right. Like this is the 1970s. So then Ron started to go through the stolen paintings that he had to sell to Abdul. But each time the agent playing Abdul would like get up to inspect the paintings, and then Ron would also rise, which would prompt the other agents to also rise now that they knew that they were supposed to do this. And this was hilarious to many of the agents in the Plaza Suite, and they took turns going to the bathroom so they could get their laughter out.
I don't blame them.
Yeah. And to make matters worse, the tape recorder that they had attached to the bottom of the coffee table also fell down during the meeting. Fortunately, the agents were able to kind of kick it away before Ron noticed, but still, everyone in this room was hardly keeping it together.
It sounds like an SNL skit.
Yeah, it's just, what a mess. So then the agent playing Abdul quickly got up and, sensing that if he stayed in the room any longer that he would ruin the sting. Probably a good call. And before going into the adjoining room of the suite, he beckoned a redhead agent posing as Abdul's secretary, Marco Denindi, I think that's how you pronounce her name, to follow him in the other room. Ron, seeing this, asked Mel, where was the Emir going? Mel, always quick on his feet, said the Emir was going to go bang his secretary to blow off some steam.
Oh!
Yes. Mm-hmm. So then Mel invited Ron to eat the mounds of deli meat that they had in the suite. And confused, Ron asked, the Emir likes this food? Mel replied, loves it. Can't get enough of it. He can't dare eat Jewish food in his own country. They cut off his head for being a traitor. But the minute he comes to New York where he can get vintage deli, that's all he eats. He drinks booze, too.
He's selling it.
He's selling it. Now, go on.
I probably would have gone with, no, he just assumed you would.
Yeah.
But this
okay.
works too.
Okay. Unfortunately, though, Mel had also forgotten to get any plastic utensils at the deli. So when he invited Ron to eat, he said, dig in with your hands, Arab style.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm,
Did this guy actually buy this?
Somehow, yes, after all of this. So we actually called Mel the next day and said, Mel, I really don't understand what was going on at the plaza yesterday. The Emir and his staff acted like crazy people, giggling and falling over each other. Can we do business with people like this? Mel replied, Ron, there's some things you gotta understand. When the Emir leaves this country, he drinks like crazy. He goes on binges. And you know how it is with royalty. You gotta do what they do. That's what they call protocol. Like yesterday, you stood up when he stood up. When the Emir drinks, he insists that his staff drinks with him. They do it because they gotta do it. But none of them really are what you call drinkers. They can't hold it.
Honestly, Mel's the guy I want in my spin room.
Yeah, like he is the king of spin. So he's on the hook for the deal, just like that.
Wow.
Now, this was the first and the last time that Emir Abdul would ever make a public appearance. But overall, the larger scheme was a winner.
They really just lucked out on that one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Worth mentioning as well that Mel was on the FBI's payroll, making at most around $1,500 a month. This annoyed Mel for several reasons. Back when he had been running schemes and was his own boss, he was making $500,000 a year.
Wow.
Now he was risking his neck for, in his mind, a meager sum of money while he was paying for his family in New York in addition to his mistress in Florida.
You gotta have extra money for the mistress in Florida.
You have to. And the man behind this pain and suffering to Mel was FBI agent Jack McCarthy, who Mel thought as cheap and as a square.
If you work in the government, you're probably a cheap square.
Yeah. In the field, McCarthy disappointed Mel more. McCarthy could barely pass as the pretend chairman of the board. He couldn't tell a lie well, his face would turn red, and he didn't have the street smarts to be a convincing businessman. In addition, McCarthy wore cheap suits that Mel thought did not land him any added credibility.
Mel's an actual crook, so he knows what's up.
Exactly. Now, to at least fix the Florida problem, aka all the money that Mel was spending to fly to Florida and take care of his mistress, Mel started working with the FBI team in Miami running similar white-collar stings. This was approved by Mel's supervisor, John Good, since it took the heat off of him to pay Mel more money. With legit business in Miami, Mel could also expense those round-trip tickets and help the FBI run more stings. So, kind of was a win for win in this. And I'd also like to remind listeners that up until this point, Abscam had nothing to do with rooting out government official corruption. Again, it was just meant to collar regular old white-collar crooks. That's it. That would change, though, with the introduction of a man named Bill Rosenberg. Bill was more your typical con man, full of charm and smooth talking, especially when compared to Mel. On their first meeting at Abdul Enterprises, Bill presented Mel with several deals. Bill told Mel that Camden, New Jersey Mayor Angelo Joseph Arrischetti wanted to develop the port of Camden and had close ties to the folks at the Campbell Soup Company, which was the biggest employer in Camden. Bill teased that interested parties could buy secondhand railroad cars, industrial hoists, and other machinery that the mayor would arrange to have leased by the port and the soup company. The second deal was even more intriguing. With legalized casino gambling, Atlantic City was posed to be the Vegas of the East. But New Jersey currently required 2 rounds of approvals for casinos to be built in Atlantic City. One before construction started, and one when it applied for a permanent license. With this predicament, casinos would have to invest billions and millions of dollars to build their resorts without any real assurance that their license would even be approved. Because of this, casino builders were finding it hard to secure loans for new construction and were desperate enough to pay high interest rates and even offer investors a piece of casino ownership. Rosenberg essentially proposed that they use the Abdul money to help finance construction loans in Atlantic City. Mel then asked how it would be guaranteed that these casinos would actually get their license at the end of the day. Rosenberg hinted that he knew of a way to guarantee it, implying that it was as simple as bribing Camden Mayor Arrischetti himself.
So Rosenberg is not in on Abscam.
No.
He's okay. So he's like thinking Abdul Enterprises is a real company.
Yes, correct.
And he's saying, "Oh, we can make sure that you make your money in the casino world by bribing the mayor."
Yeah, he's just he's a good old fashioned crook middleman, con man.
Cool.
Yeah. But this was huge, hearing that the mayor himself could be in on it. Abscam now had the chance to undercover political corruption. Born in Camden, Arrischetti spent his entire life in New Jersey. He began his political career in 1961 after serving in the United States Coast Guard. During his time as Camden's purchasing director, he narrowly avoided an indictment, though, for fraud and perjury. Despite this, the people of Camden elected him mayor in 1973 and then to state senate in 1976. The following year, 1977, he successfully won re-election to both positions.
He was mayor and in the state senate at the same time?
Yes, that is correct.
Wow, I've never heard of that before.
I know. Isn't that interesting? Now, if Arrischetti was as willing to take bribes as Rosenberg hinted, the Abscam team would need to figure out how to get Rosenberg as the middleman out of the way and go straight to the mayor himself. The reason for this makes a lot of sense. If the bribe was passed to Rosenberg, the mayor could claim that he himself did not take the bribe. The FBI wanted to present a rock-solid case, so Mel and the company would have to figure out how to get the mayor himself on the hook. The next month, Rosenberg told Mel that the owner of the Penthouse magazine, Bob Gushoni, needed money to finish his Penthouse Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City. Would the Emir be interested in that deal?
I'm sure he would.
In response, Mel pushed for a face-to-face meeting with Rosenberg's contact, the Camden mayor, who could guarantee that the casino would get its license. Initially reluctant to connect the two for fear of losing his middleman status and the millions on commission that he was owed, Rosenberg finally relented and set up a meeting to produce Mayor Arrischetti at the Abdul office on December 1st, 1978. Now, at this point, there was still a good chance that Rosenberg was lying. After all, he was a con man himself, and con men often lied or exaggerated their contacts when running a scheme.
Yeah, you can't just take them at their word.
Exactly. But FBI Supervisor Good thought there was an even better chance that the mayor was in fact, taking bribes when he found out about that earlier indictment for fraud and perjury.
Where there's smoke, there's fire.
Right. This was the first of many, quote-unquote, probability profiles that the FBI did during Abscam. This explains why the operation was so successful and why not every name that a middleman tried to peddle was followed up on with a full sting operation. Before the meeting with the mayor, Good also called up a man named John Jacobs, who was a skilled lawyer and the strike force liaison on Abscam. In discussing the importance of this meeting, the men decided that they would use both audio and videotapes during the meeting. Jacobs also volunteered to monitor the meeting in the next room. Funny enough, Mel had also been insistent that from the beginning, everything be recorded to protect himself. In the early days, he had even bought his own tapes and used his own tape recorder during meetings. This would end up being the norm for all the important Abscam meetings. Jacobs would sit in the other room monitoring the meetings and would sometimes call in to tell the FBI agents to rephrase a question that would elicit a response from the target that could actually result in a conviction. The FBI agents also went over the rules of entrapment before the meeting with the mayor. As a reminder, Entrapment is this legal defense that can be used when a defendant was persuaded by law enforcement to commit a crime. This defense is based on the idea that the government cannot induce an innocent person to commit a crime. So in doing these stings, Mel could not urge unwilling targets to break the law or even help them break the law. That's important, and keep remembering that. Mel more or less followed these rules, but he definitely did not understand them. In his own mind, an honest man would not break the law no matter what Mel offered him.
I feel like there's going to be some entrapment here.
Just you wait. Anyways, on December 1st, 1978, Mayor Eschetti entered the Abdul office. In this first meeting, Eschetti told McCarthy point blank that, quote unquote, "I'll give you Atlantic City. Without me, you do nothing."
Well, there you go.
Yeah. Once the mayor left, Rosenberg told Mel and McCarthy that it would cost between $350,000 to $400,000 in bribes to the mayor for an Atlantic City casino license. But the mayor would only deal through Rosenberg. McCarthy said, "We'll think about it." Again, they didn't want to deal with Rosenberg. They wanted the mayor himself to take the money. To go around Rosenberg, Mel started making side calls to the mayor himself and stating that while McCarthy was a straight shooter with the emir's money, Mel was elastic, meaning that he saw no problem with, for example, boosting up the price of property to the emir so that Mel and the mayor could split $1 million or $2 million between them. Buying into this deal, the mayor started working with Mel, essentially cutting out Rosenberg. Also around this time, the FBI brought in another main character of the story, Agent Anthony Amoroso, who was brought in to really soothe an ever-annoyed Mel, whose beef with McCarthy had really started to blow up. Amoroso could work with McCarthy on the New York investigation and organize all of Mel's stings in Florida.
So he was kind of like Mel's assistant?
Kind of, but they're definitely more on the same playing field. They're kind of more
Okay.
like partners in this. Amoroso was the exact opposite of McCarthy. He was well-dressed, grew up in the Bronx like Mel, and had the street smarts that McCarthy lacked. Mel immediately liked Amoroso, and he also liked the news that Amoroso brought. Seeing the potential of Abscam, the FBI was making it a top priority, opening up their wallets and raising Mel's salary to $3,000 a month.
He can afford 2 mistresses in Florida now.
Let's add another one to the roster. Amoroso delivered this news to Mel at the Holiday Inn in Atlantic City, where he, McCarthy, and some other agents posing as Abdul's staff were staying for free, thanks to the generosity of the mayor, of course.
Ooh.
That night at dinner, the mayor point blank told Mel and the others that he would need $25,000 immediately to get the ball running on the casino license. The total price for the license would be $400,000, and that the money was going to be passed along to Eschetti's contacts, namely Kenneth MacDonald, the vice chairman of the State Casino Control Commission. Through MacDonald, Eschetti claimed to own 3 of the 4 commission members, including the chairman, which would equal a casino license.
Yeah.
McCarthy said they would have to clear it with Abdul himself. That night, though, Eschetti also surprised Mel by saying that he had set up another meeting in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, for the Abdul group to meet with a man named Alexander Feinberg, who was counsel to the Delaware Riverport Authority, but more importantly, was the bagman to U.S. Senator Harrison Williams, chairman of the Senate Labor Committee.
This is just being handed to them on a silver platter.
Absolutely. So during that meeting the next day with the senator's bagman, Feinberg, and a close friend of the senator, Henry Williams, no relation, they told Mel and the crew that, and I'm just going to read this, they were in partnership with Senator Williams and a New York Jersey garbage contractor named George Katz in a titanium mine. The government, they said, was in desperate need of titanium, and the partners could make millions if Abdul would loan them money to clear the mine of mortgages and pick up the small processing plant nearby. In the hallway, Eschetti also came up to Mel and said, "Push this one. We can make a lot of bucks with the senator."
Wow.
Yeah, so it's just...
I'm really surprised by how cavalier everyone's being. They must just really trust that this Abdul guy is legit.
Yeah, and that Mel himself is legit, too.
Mm-hmm.
Now, born in Plainfield, New Jersey, Senator Williams had graduated from Oberlin College in 1941. Following his service in the Navy during World War II, he attended Columbia Law School and, after receiving his honorable discharge in 1945, was admitted to the New Jersey Bar. Williams began his political career with one term in the U.S. House of Representatives before being elected to the Senate in 1958. By 1979, with 23 years of service, he had become the senior senator from New Jersey and the fifth-ranking Democrat in the Senate. Williams also chaired the Committee on Labor and Human Resources and the Subcommittee on Securities, Housing, and Urban Affairs. So, a pretty high-ranking senator.
Yeah. This wasn't just like Joe Schmo. This wasn't just like rank and file.
Yeah, absolutely. For the FBI, the headline of the meeting was clear. With proper planning, the Abscam team could not only bust the mayor, but his larger network. But again, they would need to break down the insulation around each of these contacts. That was Araschetti now.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, on January 29th, 1979, Araschetti became the first politician to receive a bribe in the Abscam investigation when he pocketed 2 envelopes of cash handed over from McCarthy in the Abdul Enterprises office on Long Island. It was $25,000, the amount requested by Araschetti at the dinner.
I'm surprised he didn't request more as an upfront payment, honestly.
You know, I don't know how these people work.
Yeah. I'm not sure what the down payment is on a bribe.
Yeah, nowadays. I mean, again, we have to consider inflation nowadays, too, so it's probably a lot higher than... Around this time, Abscam had another big scare when Rosenberg actually called up Mel to say that his friend had identified the redhead FBI agent, Margot Diendy, in a picture published in Newsday about the arrest of a female skyjacker at Kennedy Airport, shedding doubt on the entire operation.
Oh, no.
Mel quickly denied it, saying that there was no way and that Margot just looked like the broad in the picture. And thankfully, Rosenberg bought it, or at least did not tell Araschetti. But Rosenberg was actually right. It was Margot in the paper. She had been pulled by the FBI for the brief assignment, but no one had thought to tell John Good or anyone who was managing the Abscam investigation about the picture.
That's a big flub on their part.
Yeah. There are just so many times when the FBI got lucky that their sting wasn't blown, and most of it is thanks to Mel's quick thinking and long-term strategy on playing on these people's greed and presenting the idea that was so profitable that targets were willing to look beyond some of the inconsistencies.
Really, this wouldn't exist without Mel. The FBI needed him.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't expendable in this whole process.
Totally. And I think Mel knew that too. So anyways, with Araschetti on the hook, Mel decided to make the deal even sweeter and relayed that Abdul's board had decided to build a casino in Atlantic City and wanted Araschetti to select the site himself. The Emir was also interested in buying other sites and then inflating the price to potential buyers, resulting in another bigger cut of money for the mayor.
Again, just playing on his greed.
Exactly. The catch, though, was that the Abdul group wanted personal assurances from MacDonald, or remember, the vice chairman of the State Casino Control Commission, that the license would go through. Finally, the mayor relented in setting up a dinner between MacDonald himself and McCarthy. There was no bribe taking during the meeting, but it showed that the FBI's actions were working. They were sowing enough trust with the mayor and playing into his greed so well that he was willing to produce MacDonald in person and strip away some of that insulation. Now back in Florida, the Miami FBI branch had acquired a yacht.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. This was on Mel's advice while he was running another white-collar sting operation.
He's just having the time of his life.
It's kind of like the plane, but we're in Miami, so it has to be a yacht, right? The yacht had actually been seized in 1978 after being found abandoned with 300 bales of marijuana aboard.
How large is a bale of marijuana? I've never heard that unit of measurement.
Same. And I'm like thinking about the hay. You know? Yeah. That's a lot of marijuana. So while this is they have the yacht, okay? Meanwhile, though, Good has been toying with the idea of how to give Agent Amorosa a larger role in the investigation. And Mel proposed an idea to Good that elevated his preferred agent, Amoroso, and also involved using the yacht. Of course.
You got to use the yacht.
Mm-hmm. You see, in some of his side stings in Florida, Mel had created another fictitious Arab businessman named Yazir Habib. His idea was to promote Habib to Emir and have Amorosa become his board chairman, what McCarthy was essentially for Abdul. Further, Mel would pitch Abdul and Habib as friends who could co-invest together, and that the yacht in Florida was actually Habib's office in the U.S. Nice. Mel also reasoned that the team would need to produce a physical mirror to folks like Arachetti sooner rather than later. And the team could not produce Abdul because of the disaster at the Plaza Hotel.
Yeah, they could not repeat that.
Yeah, exactly. Good approved the plan, and soon Mel was on the phone with various targets, including Arachetti himself, talking about the new role for Omarosa, who went by Tony DeVito under Habib.
That's a really good alias.
Tony DeVito? I mean, come on now. We have now arrived at one of my favorite parts of the story. And that is when Mel and Good got the rest of the FBI to okay a plan for Abscam to throw a yacht party to further impress Mayor Arachetti and convince him to produce McDonald and others for bribery.
He convinced them to throw a yacht party on
Yes.
taxpayers' dime.
Yeah, and like this is kind of Good's reaction at first. Like, Mel, this is a good idea, but I don't think we have the budget for that.
It sounds realistic.
Mel immediately goes, "Don't worry about it, babe."
Oh?
So it was decided that the party would be held in honor of Mayor Arachetti. Upon telling the mayor this, he quickly offered to pay for all the liquor, and that his Camden friend, a produce dealer, would cover all the food.
Well, there you go.
Mel then also got another contact to provide more liquor, and yet another to provide steaks for the event.
See, I know this is a real story, so it's not going to end this way, but I'm just waiting for the twist where Mel's been playing the FBI all along, and he, like, goes out on the yacht and, like, escapes.
Right. No, he doesn't. Spoiler alert. But for lodging, Mel found out that the manager of a luxury Spanish river resort in Delray Beach, Florida, was Lebanese. So he told the manager about the Emir's visit, and the manager gave him a room block, which was super impressive considering it was high tourism season at the time.
Yeah.
Now was the question of what gift the Emir should present to the mayor. The FBI's budget was a little too tight for a nice new watch. So Mel had the idea of actually presenting the mayor with this knife that he had gotten in an Athens flea market and pass it off as this ceremonial knife of friendship that had been in the Emir's family for hundreds of years.
Mel is always going to find a way. He's always going to find a way.
Exactly. And to make matters even better, the FBI also found an agent who was from Lebanon who could speak perfect Arabic to pose as Yazir, the Emir.
Where was he earlier?
Right? Like, I do not know. Again, I think this is like now higher priorities. They're like, okay, we can pull this guy. But yeah, where was he at the plaza?
And are they pulling together this yacht party essentially for free?
Pretty much, yeah.
Crazy.
I know. So the only real hiccup happened around a week before the party when Mel received a phone call at 3 a.m. telling him that there had been a small fire on the yacht, which had left greasy soot all over the interior. Unwilling to let the party go, though, Mel called one of his contacts and had them come clean the boat, not worrying about the final number on the bill. More on that later.
Ooh.
Yeah. But finally, the day of the party arrived, and so did the Emir, quote unquote, who arrived in style in a limo with multiple aides and 2 bodyguards. All, of course, FBI.
This is just a big cosplay.
Yeah, it is. The yacht's crew, also FBI, was dressed to impress, and Mel's cleaner had done an excellent job, so the lot was stunning. The Emir, now aboard the yacht, presented the mayor with the knife of friendship, a gift that the mayor loved.
Oh my gosh.
Now, the mayor, though, was not the only elected official on the yacht that night. The mayor had also produced Senator Williams himself, saying that he and the senator had skipped an important political event in New Jersey just to come to this yacht party.
I would too. It sounds like a great yacht party.
Yeah, it sounds like a great time. So there they were, Mayor Arachetti, Senator Williams on a yacht amongst FBI agents, in addition to swindlers, hustlers, pornographers, forgers, narcotic smugglers, and professional gamblers.
What a crew.
What a crew. Side note, Mel also wanted to invite hookers, but Good refused, even after Mel said, quote unquote, "Whoever heard of a party without hookers?"
Yeah. Come on, you're having hookers at your wedding, right, Sarah?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What party doesn't have hookers?
Exactly. It's not a party at all.
The party was a raging success. The mayor was so impressed by the luxury around him that he told Mel and Amoroso that he would have MacDonald come to the Long Island office to take the bribe. Another layer of insulation stripped away.
They're doing a really good job of building trust, and all they have to do is just prove that they have money.
Mm-hmm. In another conversation, Mel and Amorosa also talked to Senator Williams, who told them about his interest in the titanium mine, but said that the two should only deal with his bagman, Feinberg. But the biggest win of the party overall was definitely the increased credibility for the operation. So just the next week, on March 31st, 1979, the mayor showed up to Abdul Enterprises with MacDonald himself. However, this meeting would almost blow the entire operation.
Oh, no.
Mm-hmm. You see, the meeting was with McCarthy. Remember, he's the straight-edge FBI agent who Mel disliked.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in an effort to actually get MacDonald to take the briefcase of money, $10,000 to be exact, he kept snapping it closed whenever Mayor Ericetti would reach for the suitcase. Kind of weird behavior. Finally, McCarthy relented and gave the suitcase to Ericetti, but the damage was done. After leaving the office, Ericetti and MacDonald went to another pre-scheduled meeting with Mel and Amoroso and let them have it, saying how rude and crude McCarthy had been to them, and that also his outfit at the yacht party, dungarees and a sports shirt, was deeply disrespectful.
You're rude and you're badly dressed.
Yeah, they were sitting on that one. They were sitting on that one.
They were in the group chat talking about him. Mm-hmm.
In conclusion, though, Ericetti said he would never deal with McCarthy ever again.
I guess you got to be really sensitive when you're engaging in like this type of corruption, but it seems like a very dramatic reaction to a slightly rude encounter and a bad outfit.
Yeah, I think maybe it had been building. I think they maybe disliked his suits from the get-go, and finally the yacht party outfit just really threw them over the edge. They couldn't do it anymore.
If I got to not work with everyone who I thought was rude and badly dressed, I'd have to leave DC.
So true. So true. Now, Mel and Agent Amoroso were able to soothe the brooding pair, saying that Amoroso was actually poised to take over the Habib and Abdul operation, and that he could give MacDonald a top job at Abdul's planned casino in Atlantic City. Mel and Amoroso were so successful in winning them back that before leaving, the mayor took Mel aside and gave him a brochure with pictures and names of the New Jersey State Legislature. Written on the brochure were check marks next to 13 members who the mayor said could be bought.
Whoa.
Yep. He also gave Mel a separate list of federal, state, and local officials who also could be bribed and offered to make introductions. And once the mayor and MacDonald were back in the car counting the cash in the briefcase, MacDonald decided to give the Abdul Habib folks back $25,000 to help Agent Amoroso, called Tony, to pay for the yacht fire damage.
Wow.
Yeah. You see, Amoroso and Mel had told the mayor at the yacht party that Tony/Amoroso would get fired from Habib if the Emir found out about the fire.
They're like building a legitimate partnership.
They're so good. They're so good. And yeah, so this was more than enough money to pay for the entire yacht party, including Mel's cleaners and the hotel suites and everything like that. So again, their entire party was paid for by the targets of the scheme.
That's crazy impressive.
Crazy impressive.
I'm really thinking you need to get creative with the financing for your wedding.
Yeah. You know what? We could learn a thing or two.
Yeah, I think you could get the whole thing paid for. You just have to get the FBI involved.
Yeah.
And Mel, it could be on a yacht.
And it could be on a yacht, most importantly. So anyways, though, after this close call, McCarthy was officially retired from the field. He was just too straight edge to play the role. And besides, the investigators were now veering into Atlantic City and the New Jersey Democratic Organization, and the stakes were getting much higher. And that is actually where I'm gonna end part one.
No!
Yeah, I know. It was too much. It was too much. I had to spread out the love. My next episode, we're gonna dive into how the Abscam team baited and hooked its most high-profile target, Senator Williams, and more.
I'm excited. I knew honestly little about this, so I am stunned.
It's a good one. It's a good one. It's so late 1970s, early 80s.
So historical.
Yeah, it's just like it gives us like such a good kind of I love this story.
And what I love about it is that it would be almost impossible to pull this off today because of how easy it would be to just like look people up online. Like it would be maybe not impossible, but so much harder.
It would be definitely harder. Yeah. It's honestly the perfect scheme. And again, they keep getting lucky, not having their cover blown and things like that.
But it's all because of Mel. Mel's the man.
Mel is the man. Okay, the government crook is the man.
He deserves more than $3,000 a month. Bump that up.
Bump that up. Yeah, he's indispensable. But with that, Harley, do you want to gavel us out?
Yes, I do.